Hi, I'm Sal Mercagliano, Associate Professor of History at Campbell University, a former merchant mariner, and an adjunct professor in maritime industry policy at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Welcome to this Maritime Industry Today. What's going on with Christmas in May? Maybe asking, why are we talking about Christmas in May, Sal? It seems like you're maybe at least 6 to 7 months too early. But in truth, it's a big issue that's about to happen and unfold. Uh, First off, I want to apologize. Been a little bit busy. Been attending the National Defense Transportation Association conference. Actually, did a presentation there 2 days ago. Doing it virtually, but have been attending a lot of the sessions. And the NDTA talks a lot about military logistics. Particularly, one of the things I've been focusing on is military shipping and commercial shipping in the military role. Going to be doing a series of videos for you next week that talks about that in some more detail, and particularly what happens should the United States find itself in a war with a East Asian nation. I don't know, China perhaps, but we'll be doing that next week. So we'll be putting that together for you for that. Did a big video on a recap of previous stories. That's the previous video to this. So it's in the show notes if you want to go back and see that. First, about 8 minutes or so, recaps a lot of vessels that we've talked about. And then we get into a big discussion about the pipeline and the issuing of two Jones Act waivers and what exactly that entails. So if you're really interested in that topic, go take a look at that video. It's posted, it's the previous video to this. And again, it'll be in the show notes. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about what is going on here. So this was a story that was in American Shipper, which I thought kind of provoked the conversation for today. And I'm going to string together a series of stories to make it applicable to you, why you should be worried about this right now. So time to start prepping for Christmas shipping capacity crunch. Retail sales still outpacing inventory despite import boom. So one of the things we start seeing in the summer and fall of the year is consumers, and don't think about this, but retailers do. They start buying their purchases for Christmas, start stocking up now. What's going to be the big issues? What are going to be the big items? And how do we start doing that? And one of the things you start seeing here is this chart right here: retail, trade, real inventories, and nominal inventories to date. So one of the things you see right here, they're talking about inventories in billions of dollars, and then inventory, and then sales that they have right here, inventories to sales. And one of the things you see here is this massive drop right here, which is in early 2020. That coincides with COVID. When COVID hit, all of a sudden, consumer demand went down, and more importantly, the supply got cut off in China. When China went down their lockdown, they went down a very strong lockdown. Everything got cut off, and so you had this kind of precipitous fall. Plus, all of a sudden, people weren't purchasing everything they normally purchase. We really reoriented our purchasing strategy, and now all of a sudden, we're on back trying to get back online. One of the things you're seeing here, they're trying to restock inventories, try to get inventories back up. What this means is we've put a lot of stress on the shipping market. It basically was level for a while, and then all of a sudden it precipitously dropped at the beginning of 2020, and now we're trying to catch up. And what that has done is cause issues within the ability to move things, particularly on container ships, and most importantly along the west coast of the United States, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. I'm going to hop you between several stories, and again, all the links are in the show notes, so feel free to go in and read them, take a look at them. So right here, this is a GCAPTAIN story. Forecast warns link between container traffic and global economic growth could decline in recovery. So one of the big issues we've been talking about here is this growth in container traffic. Container companies are booming right now. Record profits. ONE reported a quarterly profit 3,000% higher than before. Zim, a Israeli container line company, just did an IPO a few months ago. Everybody thought it was going to be a very soft IPO, and all of a sudden they're booming. They're booming. They're challenging the big companies. They're nowhere going to come close to the big nine companies. They're not. But it's an interesting take here. And so one of the things we're starting to see here is this growth. We're seeing this growth take place. And one of the things that this story kind of talks about here is that the economic growth could begin to decline during the recovery. We're not sure yet, but there's other stories that kind of float a different view about this. And this is what this story, let's hop on over here. This is over in Splash 24/7. Transpacific volume show no sign of easing. The amount of traffic coming across the Pacific is amazing. The container rates, the rates to pay to ship a container are astronomical. If you look at the base rates, they may be anywhere between 3 and 5,000, but surcharges and additional charges, premium rates are talking pushing over $10,000 to move a box. It's crazy the amount of money that's being paid to move containers, especially if you want to prioritize your containers. And so one of the things we're seeing here is this: Asia US West Coast rates are more than 4 times higher this week than in 2019. 4 times. That's an amazing amount of goods that we're seeing moved across here. And we're seeing that pushed across in large numbers. What does that translate as? Let's go over here. This is the Twitter account for the Marine Exchange. The Marine Exchange is basically this, basically, they provide a snapshot of what's going on in Southern California ports. And they send this out daily. This is the daily one. This is the one from yesterday, I believe. Yeah, yesterday, shipping report for May 19th. 91 ships in port, 4 less than yesterday. 17 container ships at anchor, 2 more than yesterday. 34 ships at anchor, 5 less than yesterday's. Of these, 22 are waiting berth. And what does that mean? What does all that translate to, Sal? It translates to this. Let's go to marine traffic right here. Let's go, actually, this marine traffic. There we go. So this is Southern California. President Eisenhower. President Eisenhower is that vessel that caught fire off Santa Barbara we've talked about. She is right here up in the berth, basically getting repairs. I showed you some pictures in that previous video. The one I just did, the previous one, has got some great pictures. Bob Goluck sent me some great photos of President Eisenhower sitting there. But when you look at the port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, one of the things I did is I did the satellite image, so you get a better image here of the terminal here. You get an appreciation for this just going around here. That's President Eisenhower. She is currently, again, under repair, so she doesn't have anything. Here's the Hyundai Busan container ship, MOL Celebration container ship, YM Anamity. Anamity? I'll go with Anamity. Who knows? Yangming ship right there. CSCL. This is basically, it's a Costco vessel now. Right there offloading. Here is ONE Olympus. She's offloading. Hyundai Global. She's right there. And you go around this whole port right here and just see container ship after container ship after container ship that are basically operating right here and offloading. Let me get rid of her right here. Let's go get rid of her. There we go. The One High 508. Again, another container ship right here. And then that's just on the inner basin here. Let's go on out here to the outer basin right here. So here's the CMA, CGM Lyra right there. Here is the von Humboldt. And again, look at the number of vessels, the number of containers we're talking about here. Here's the Georgia. Here's the Esmeraldas. I think I just saw Everlogic in here. Where's she at? There she is, Everlogic right there in port. And again, this is not all the terminals. Come on over here. Come on over to the Long Beach side over here. Costco Kilimanjaro. Yeah, I like that name. I can say that one without a problem. Over here, the Golden Eagle. She's a bulk carrier, excuse me. These guys are containers. MSC Louisiana. Ornella. All of them just packed here. And so you get the idea of how busy the port of Los Angeles and Long Beach are. And again, all this cargo has got to get out of the terminals here, get out into LA and Long Beach traffic, out of the terminals and out there. And then if you go off into the anchorages, look at the anchorage. I mean, this is the anchorage sitting there right now. You can just see it right there. All these vessels, the Eversteady, Maersk Elba, One High 529, Costco Oceana. I mean, again, you just see the entire anchorage here just piled high with vessels. And this is that issue we're having with catching up with the demand. That is Los Angeles, Long Beach. This is Oakland. Here's the NYK Delphinus, the vessel that caught fire off the coast of Oakland. She's been pulled into the terminal now. And this is the terminal right here. So this is coming into San Francisco. So you come in from San Francisco, the anchorage is the Golden Gate. You come in here. Here is the terminal in Oakland right here. If you've ever seen an episode of Mythbusters, when they go to the runway at Alameda, this is the runway, the old Naval Air Station at Alameda, and you'll see the vessels kind of tied up over here. There's a Giselle. There's a ship in here. Those are tugs. She's getting ready to move. She's got 2 tugs on her. I'm trying to see who she is right there. Oh, Cap Jackson right there. She's pulling out. She's got tugs on her right there, getting ready. Kuala Lumpur Express right there. And again, you get an idea here for the amount of traffic that's in here. And again, to put this in the context, zoom out here for a second. This is the anchorage in San Francisco Bay. Vessels waiting to come in. Here's the APL Columbus. Here's the ONE Ibis underway. Looks like she's shifting into the dock right there. And then even more so outside the anchorage, zoom out here. You've got vessels all milling about out here because there's only so much room in the anchorage right here. And you see here all these vessels kind of. Here's the Matsonia. That's a U.S. ship. She's leaving Oakland, heading down to Long Beach. She's one of those Jones Act carriers, so she can move cargo between U.S. ports. Here's the Ever Lambert sitting there, and you can see the ships waiting there to get in. Not enough room in this anchorage inside the interior here. San Francisco Bay gets a little bit shoal in here, so you don't have a lot of anchorage space inside here. You can't really move pretty high up in the bay here, so these deep draft vessels have to sit here, and they don't sit over here because, again, it's not deep enough for them. So you have that anchorage. And then the last place on the West Coast is the two Tacoma, Seattle areas. And again, you don't see a lot of vessels here. This is Tacoma right here. So here's Tacoma. I think I saw C-SPAN heading out here. There was one of their vessels heading out here. There she is. C-SPAN Amazon heading out right there. You've got a couple of vessels here up against the berth in Tacoma. Here you go. Here's the container terminals. And again, the way you can always tell terminals is if you see the little round little things, those are oil terms. So here's the Houston, one of these Jones Act tankers. She's right there. But up here, these are the container cranes. You see the little container cranes right there. You can see. So there's two berths right here in Tacoma. Tacoma, Seattle is not a big container port. So when a lot of people talk about shifting vessels up to Seattle to Tacoma, there's not a lot of room for them. There's just not a lot of room. This is the Seattle port right here. That's Harbor Island. This is where the terminal is. And again, it's not just a matter of shifting vessels up into the terminals there, but you have to have the right cranes to be able to handle the vessels of certain size. And more importantly, the other issue with Seattle Tacoma is the road and rail lines out of Seattle Tacoma are nowhere near as good as Los Angeles Long Beach. So as you see, especially that parking lot off Los Angeles Long Beach and Oakland now, it's slow to get goods in. And then you add these stories into here to kind of put this further into context. This is from Maritime Executive. Blank sailing schedules creating further delays for shippers. So this story I thought was really good. I really enjoy this story because I think if you want to really get a good handle on what is happening here, this story kind of really encapsulates it. So one of the things they've been talking about for much of last year, shippers have been complaining about delays, lack of availability, rising cost of volume, soared in the container market. So Project 44, which is a logistics platform, they did a study here, and they found that carriers are continuing to cancel sailings, an indication that undercapacity will remain a challenge for shippers. Now, one of the things they had in 2020 was overcapacity. There was too many ships, not enough cargo. Now there's too much cargo, not enough ships. So blank sailings have risen dramatically a year ago as the major carriers sought to address low demand and overcapacity during the worldwide lockdown. However, as consumer demand picked up, volumes rebounded, the carriers restored their schedules, leaving ports to more often highlight the challenges of dealing with extra loaders added to the schedule. Blank sailings had largely disappeared. In other words, they were not, missing sailings. They were basically sailing as advertised. Come to this, as the rebound in shipping volumes reached new highs in early 2021, carriers, however, found themselves contending with a growing number of impediments. Port congestion, we just talked about that on the West Coast right there. Even though Los Angeles is making significant progress, the number of ships waiting for terminals is still high. While ports would begin to manage the surge in demand and claw down some of the backlogs, carriers also began to resume blank sailings in order to maintain schedules. Instead of sailing ships and piling them up there, they just blank the schedule. They stop sailing a vessel for that time and reschedule it for another time. It's better to basically try to keep a schedule than to have a vessel arrive at Los Angeles, Long Beach, and wait and wait and wait. It's better to get back on schedule. And the way you do that is by blanking sailings. You start canceling. The problem is that raises the rates to do it. If you've got a schedule where a ship is crossing every week, for example, but the ships are piling up, and now it's not taking 7 days. It's not taking, I'm just hypothetically, it's taking, 21 days to do the full circle. But now it's taking 24 days. what you're going to do is take a vessel out of that schedule to get it back down to 21, to try to get the schedule back on, because you want predictability, you want dependability, you want schedules. But now there's less vessels sailing, there's less capacity, which means you're going to increase the cost to move that, and some cargo is not going to get moved. Some cargo is going to be left on the docks. Low value cargo that's not going to pay premium rates, is not going to get on there. And what does that mean? That means there could be shortages. There could be less consumer goods than what's needed over there to get the schedule back going. Understand, ship companies hate this. Hate this. This is terrible. You want the ships continually moving. Sitting at anchor is terrible. They're just burning fuel, paying costs that they don't need to be costs. Vessels make money moving. They don't make money sitting at anchor. At least in port, they're moving cargo. At anchor, it's horrific. They hate this. They do not want this. And what they're going to start doing is altering the schedule, which is going to impact you, the consumer. Because as they start cutting these schedules, that means less cargo coming across. That means higher costs for the cargo coming across. That means you pay more. And especially as the premium season comes on, when we start talking about, again, Christmas coming on. Now, there's efforts to try to fix this. The Federal Maritime Commission, this is the new Federal Maritime head right here, FM Commissioner, I forget his name, I apologize, Daniel Maffei. He was a commissioner. I think it's 5 commissioners on there. One of them is the head commissioner. The other ones are associate commissioners. The FMC is looking at ways to deal with this. They've been dealing with this in a couple of ways. Number one of the issues they've been dealing with is American exporters, particularly agricultural exporters, have had their docks, their goods sitting on the dock. Container companies, these vessels here, are sailing back to Asia with empty containers. They're not taking loaded containers, which makes you wonder, why? I would assume they would want to be loaded back and forth. Yes and no. There's a shortage of containers. You need an X amount of containers to make this system work. And if you take back loaded containers, those loaded containers have to be offloaded, sent to a site, unpacked, and then sent back to the load site, loaded with containers, and then back to the port. If you just bring back empties, you can just send them to the loading site. You don't have to unload them. You just send them right to the loading site, and then you can pack them in. Plus, it costs money to build containers. And so there's a whole issue about building containers and getting containers back to the right spot. FMC has been dealing with this. They've been dealing with this. The problem with the FMC is this, I will tell you, and I'm a critic of the FMC a lot. I do hit them quite a lot. The problem is they don't have a lot of oversight over foreign shipping. They just don't. And they're very constrained in what they can do. Back in 1961, we did something we shouldn't have done. We split our maritime authorization into 2 agencies, the Maritime Administration and the Federal Maritime Commission. We took the regulatory element out of the Maritime Administration and put it in the FMC, which made the Maritime Administration less powerful. It doesn't have any regulatory oversight. It has no hammer, basically. It has no hammer to come down on people. FMC has the hammer, but the problem is they're largely they can basically do it against American firms. They have very limited ability against foreign firms. And so the FMC has been dealing with this issue with problems coming from American exporters and these foreign companies, which again go back here to the anchorage off the coast of Los Angeles. Maersk, that's Danish. CMA CGM, that's a French company. Eversteady, that is Evergreen, that is Taiwanese. MSC, Mediterranean Shipping Company, that's Swiss. Costco, that's China. CSCL, that's China. Who else we got here? London Express. Oh, that's Hapag Lloyd, that's German. One High 529. That is actually, I think that's actually Korean. I think, I'm not sure when it comes to ownership, but you're dealing with all these issues as you see them right here. And so there's very little oversight. Again, I've just showed you the port of Los Angeles, Long Beach. There were no American ships that I saw, except for the President Eisenhower sitting there, that was basically getting repaired. If you zoom out coming into the port, go up to the Santa Barbara Channel here, you'll see vessels, still coming in. Yep, here they come. Here come the line of vessels coming in. So here's the Cap St. Vincent coming in. Here's the MSC Flavia coming in. Here's vessels going out. Here's the President Wilson. That's APL. She's outbound that time. Conti Conquest heading out, Maersk vessel heading out, Saga Voyager heading out. And so Horizon Pacific, that is a Pasha line, that's an American company, vessel coming in. So you see, again, not a lot of American presence in this. And this is going to impact you. This is why you should start thinking about this. What goods do you want? We saw this in Christmas last year. If you tried to get the newest PlayStation console, for example, really expensive. It was through the roof. They wound up having to fly most of that cargo. And that's the other issue here. If they cannot get priority cargo on vessels to move it, they'll start flying it. And that even adds more cost to it. And so this becomes a big issue. A lot of people are tracking their new Teslas, the electric cars after the oil pipeline, and you can track them on vessels. You'll see these delays taking place. And so it's really important to have an oversight of how our commerce moves across the ocean. And one of the things that we should be doing as a nation is twofold, I think. Number one, we need to increase the number of vessels, US vessels that move cargo. Why? Because we have more oversight over that. There's no way we ever move 100% of our cargo on 100% of US vessels. Never. It's not going to happen. China doesn't do that. But China right now, Costco Lines, for example, which is the number one commercial company in the world, has a merchant marine equal to 8 times, excuse me, it's more than that. It's 4 times larger than the U.S. merchant marine was at the end of World War II. And that was the largest merchant marine ever. It's 8 times larger than the pre-World War II merchant marines, over 111 million deadweight tons. It's massive, absolutely massive. And this gives China some fallback should all of a sudden something happen. They have their own domestic lines that can move cargo for them. And that's a really big thing. The U.S. merchant marine is very small in terms of deep draft vessels, only 180 vessels. 80 of those are in the international trade, and 60 of them are in that because they're basically supported by something called the Maritime Security Program. Talked about it with the President Eisenhower. Going to be doing a follow-up video on that. So, lesson from this discussion right here: never too early to start your Christmas shopping, especially if you're looking to getting goods from overseas, because there may be shortages of getting the demand items you need now. So with that, I'm Sal Mercogliano. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please subscribe, hit the bell to be alerted about new videos as they come out. Also, hit the like button. And if you liked, I got a lot of videos that have been saved that talk about a whole variety of different topics. If you want to learn more about the pipeline, I got several episodes on the pipeline. And then I started a series before everything started with Ever Given on the American Merchant Marine, which I'm going to be continuing here shortly. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Stay safe, keep sailing.